The 2016 Rio Olympics are just weeks away, and with it coming, the sports we all have come to love watching, track and field, swimming, and gymnastics, among others, will be out there. But what does it take to become an Olympic sport? Joining us now to discuss is Herrick Feinstein Sports Law partner, Irwin Kishner. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about this. The new sports for 2016 in the Olympics.
Well, okay, for a new sport to become a new sport, they actually have to have approval 7 years prior, according to the Olympic Charter. So for example, for 2020, there was an effort for new sports to get in. Those new sports for 2020 are going to be surfing, they're going to be sport climbing, and skateboarding, actually. And the process for which that to happen is there actually has to be an international federation for the particular sport. Once there's an international federation, then there's an ability to petition the Olympic Committee, who is very, very interested in trying to garner the millennial crowd, the young crowd. TV revenue is such a key component of any Olympics that it's critically important to have that type of viewer base and an interest in developing these types of new sports.
Okay, you helped World Surfing petition to become part of the Tokyo Olympic Games. Tell us about the legal process behind recognizing.
Sure. As I say, the process actually starts approximately 7 years before, but that really has to start way before that. In order to become an Olympic sport, there needs to be, per Olympic rules, a global outreach of the particular sport. So, for example, I alluded to earlier, sport climbing. That's a sport that actually is practiced in most of the countries in the world and on all the continents. It's the same thing with surfing. Surfing has many, many participants. It's got global reach. It's in Asia, it's in North America, it's in South America, it's in Australia. It is a very, very popular sport. And as I said earlier, to garner the millennial or the younger viewing crowd, it also has an intense interest for the younger viewership. So those all make way for what would be considered a ripe opportunity for the International Olympic Committee to actually accept a sport.
Okay, but this is obviously a multi-billion-dollar industry here. What role do commercials and all kinds of sponsorships play in the selection of the actual sports?
Okay, so that obviously is a very key component. As I alluded to earlier, there are a number of different revenue streams for an Olympics. There's ticket sales, there's sponsorship sales, and then of course there's media. All three of those play a significant component in trying to garner interest and indeed to make the Olympics profitable, because at the end of the day, while you have a tremendous amount of national pride in hosting for a host city to have an Olympics, for the economics to make sense, you need to drive those revenues. So it's critically important that that the sports that you select have sufficient viewership to garner those media dollars, to garner those sponsorships, to garner those the attendance dollars. And so it's critically important in any such sport.
Okay, so in 2009, baseball and softball were no longer events. Was that part of the reason, because of the financial aspect?
Well, baseball and softball are very interesting. There is international participation for baseball and softball.
Okay.
Baseball for men, softball for women. There are a few issues, though, with holding sports like baseball and softball. Number one, to actually have the venues, to manufacture those venues is not as easy as others. It takes a significant amount of dollars to build those venues. Those particular sports were not generating significant dollars in the context of media interest and in ticket interest, and the Olympic Committee deemed that they were going to replace those sports for the coming Olympics.
Okay, so they're trying. What changed for them to want to revive this now for 2020?
Well, again, there's significant interest in making the sports that are viewed interesting to a younger demographic.
Okay.
Older folks who may enjoy the traditional Olympic sports, the combat sports, the track and field events. It's a younger demographic is much more interested in what I'll call more to that demographic exciting type of sports like BMX cycling, like the half pipe in the Winter Olympics. The new sports that are looking really the Olympic Committee wants to attract that younger demographic for the viewership and to drive the sponsorship dollars.
Okay, just for the benefit of our viewers, walk us through the step-by-step process process to get confirmed as an Olympic sport?
So before you become a recognized Olympic sport, you actually have to be recognized by the International Olympic Committee, usually through what's called an international federation. So an international federation, let's call it surfing, has to be formed that represents the sport on an international basis. So typically, there's a number of different paths for a sport to get recognized. One such way would be for the Olympic Committee, the actual committee that's organizing the Olympic Games for a particular city, Tokyo, let's call it, would actually submit to the IOC, I'd like to include these new sports into the for the Games. That's one path. Another path is for the actual sport itself, to have the International Federation. And to be clear, the International Federation represents the national federations. So let's call it, if there is a sport, let's call it surfing, would have a U.S. federation, call it an Australian federation, call it a South American federation, which all ultimately is guided by the International Federation. That International Federation could also petition the Olympic Committee to actually have the sports recognition. Typically, the International Olympic Committee, its executive committee, which is composed of 15 members, would by majority vote approve it or submit it for full approval by the entire session, the entire international session, and that by 2/3 vote would ultimately approve a sport.
Well, it's a rigorous process, but worth seeing all the new unconventional sports in there too. Thanks a lot.
I appreciate it. Thank you.